This is episode 20, the best WordPress plugins to stop hackers from accessing your site. Welcome to the Calm Marketer Podcast. My name is Kenneth Fong, a digital marketer on a mission to help businesses thrive. I'll bring you on my marketing journey where you'll get to learn from my experiences as an INFP navigating an extroverted world and get actionable marketing tips for your business. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. So I wanted to talk about website security today. Reason being is because I've had a couple of clients come to me asking about how they can secure their website from hackers. I have one client who is using my services just to monitor their website on a month-to-month basis, and I have another one who's been kind of concerned about their site being hacked because it has happened a few times recently. So I have 4 WordPress plugins that I recommend you install on your site to help prevent your site from getting hacked. So these are for WordPress. So if you don't have a WordPress site, then these plugins won't relate to you. But if you do, then I highly recommend you follow these recommendations. So the first plugin that I would recommend is installing a firewall on your site. So a firewall is basically a program that blocks an intruder. So a good firewall to have is Wordfence. So Wordfence is a free WordPress plugin. There's also the paid version as well, but the free one would suffice. It's a firewall that will check if a website's visitor behavior matches a bot that it knows of. So if a bot, so the way your site gets hacked, it's not always by individual people, but it's by these bots that these hackers develop. And these bots would basically try to access hundreds of thousands of sites by hitting them with various usernames and passwords, trying to gain access to the site. And they access the site through various means as well. And Wordfence will notice these bots that might look like hackers, and it'll block them. And it also it allows for the legitimate bots too. So Google, Bing, those bots are allowed, and it only blocks those bad ones that will hack your site. It also blocks by IP addresses, types of computers being used, even by country. If you get the paid version, you can actually block by country. So, if you are a US-based company that serves only Americans, you might be getting hackers coming from Russia, China, or elsewhere. And what you could do is basically tell Wordfence to not allow people from Russia or China to access your site. So that adds an additional layer of protection. I know from experience and from what I've heard from others, they say that Wordfence does slow down your site. So that is one caveat to this, is that, these plugins, the more plugins you have, this one in particular can slow down your site. So you want to make sure you are aware of that. But at the same time, you got to weigh your pros and cons. It's one thing to have a slightly slower site and another thing to have a site that isn't protected. Because if you do get hacked, your day, your week, your month will be completely ruined because you're trying to figure out how to gain access back to your site. So, just keep that in mind. Okay. The next plugin adds an additional layer of protection. This one is called Securi. Now, Securi is owned by GoDaddy, and this improves your WordPress security, and it does block bots from attacking you as well. But what's different about this is that it will alert you every time someone logs into your site. So it helps you to identify hackers that might be logging in. They also alert you if like a file was changed. And that's something that hackers do. So sometimes, and I've had this for clients before where they gain access some way and they upload these files in the back end, and it completely changes how the site looks and how it functions. And security will alert you if a hacker added or changed a file. And this plugin is completely free. And there's also a paid one that also includes a firewall. So if you just want to just use security, you could get the paid one. So it'll have the firewall as well. So you don't necessarily need to use the Wordfence. But if you don't want to pay, just get the free version of security. Now, the third plugin is something that will limit the login attempts to your site. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of bots, they hit your site with various usernames and passwords, trying to find one that will get them access. They'll hit it hundreds of times, dozens of times. And with this plugin is called Limit Login Reloaded. So Limit Login Reloaded will stop someone after the third attempt. So it'll block any IPs and any bot that tries to unsuccessfully log in at least 3 times. So you can actually block people from trying out different passwords and usernames. And the fourth plugin is not necessarily related to hacking per se, but it helps with when you come into a situation where you do get hacked, or you made a mistake when you updated your site and things are broken and you want to revert back to how it was before. So this plugin is a backup plugin. It's called Updraft Plus. So Updraft Plus will automatically make backups of your site on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. And it will basically allow you to revert back to a previous version of your site that wasn't hacked or that wasn't broken. So, if you do get into that situation where, you are hacked, you can revert back to a previous version of your site. So those are my 4 main WordPress plugins that I would recommend for all websites out there. Another thing to do, aside from using the Updraft Plus plugin, is also to back up your site on the hosting level. So if you are on GoDaddy, SiteGround, all those other hosting platforms, they allow you to set up automatic backups as well. I recommend backing up your site on the hosting level because there might be instances where your site is hacked and you can't log into your site. And if you can't log into your site, you can't use that Updraft Plus plugin. And that really defeats the whole purpose, right? So you want to be able to have a backup on the hosting level as well. Another tip that I would recommend is to update your themes and to also update all of your plugins on your WordPress site. A lot of hackers, they do access your site via plugins. So you want to make sure your plugins are up to date. There is an option in WordPress to enable auto updates. I personally don't recommend this because I've come into many instances where these plugins get automatically updated and it breaks the site or changes the functionality of the site, and you don't want to get into that headache. So I personally would recommend to manually update your WordPress plugins one by one, just to make sure that they function the same and that there's no issues. Another tip that I would recommend is to use the Updraft Plus plugin to do a backup of your site first, and then start updating your plugins one by one. That way, you can revert to an old instance if a newly updated plugin doesn't really work well. And this also goes the same with the themes as well. Also, be aware of any plugins that haven't been updated by their developers in a while. So these abandoned plugins are another huge red sign. Make sure you're using plugins that are regularly updated. If you have a plugin that hasn't been updated for years, that's really bad because hackers might find a way to use these outdated plugins to gain access to your site. So if you can, only use plugins that are regularly updated. All right, so I hope these tips were helpful for you. Sometimes when you do add these plugins, they do slow down your site, and that's something to keep in mind. But you gotta weigh the pros and the cons, right? So the pros is that you won't go into these crazy headaches and trying to fix your site and not worry, right? So when you install these plugins, it'll release all of those worries, and you don't have to run into those crazy days where your site does get hacked. So definitely install these plugins as soon as you can. That way you can relieve your stress as a website owner, as an SEO, as a business owner. You won't have to worry about any of that in the future. So with that said, I will see you in the next episode.